And when we're going to run parallel with it, this is the third angel's message that began back in 1844. It's moving through history. And what we're saying is that on September 11th, 2001, that the third angel's message was in power when the fourth angel came down out of heaven, paralleling when the angel of Revelation 10 came down out of heaven. And we're now going to consider the similar characteristics between this history and this history. Okay? What? Tuesday. Amen. Collapse of the Soviet Union. What we're saying is in 1989, with the collapse of the Soviet Union and fulfillment of Daniel 11, verse 40, a prophecy had been fulfilled that marked the time of the end for Adventism at the end of the world, and there began to be an increase of knowledge. In 1996, there was a publication that is in several languages around the world today. I don't even know how many languages, called The Time of the End, that identifies the last 6 verses of Daniel 11, which is the formulation of the message here. Everything you've been hearing here so far is built upon the sequence of events that are set forth in the last 6 verses of Daniel 11. This here is what we're dealing with, September 11, 2001. You'll see the descending power. We're talking about the descending power of Revelation 10 here, and then the descending power of Revelation 18 here. We know, brothers and sisters, that when the mighty angel of Revelation 18 comes down, that we have reached the time period where Revelation 7, verse 1 through 3, comes into play. Let's read that, put that in our mind, and then I'm going to try to put a challenge in your mind. Revelation 7, verses 1 through 3. And I'm going to ask a trick question here, by the way. So those of you that have heard this trick question are not allowed to respond one way or another, all right? But let's read Revelation 7, verse 1 through 3. And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the seas, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. Here's the challenge I want to put forth to you. To me, as a student of prophecy, it seems absolutely and totally unreasonable to read those 3 verses and not ask yourself, what's the connection with Revelation 9, verse 4? Let's read Revelation 9, verse 4. It says, and it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. Amen. Now, we may not understand what the connection is, but as a student of prophecy, the verbiage in these 2 areas, in Revelation 7, 1 through 3, and Revelation 9, 4, demands that we try to bring them together somehow. God is not the author of confusion. He's not going to use these type of expressions without having some kind of connection to each other. So many in Adventism will think that Revelation 7, verses 1 through 3 has no connection with verse 4 of Revelation 9. And it does. And I don't think there's any excuse for saying that it doesn't. The verbiage is too close. I hope you see what I mean. The command, the hurt not the trees, and the sealing that is there described. That's the challenge. The question is, in verses 1 through 3 of Revelation 7, and I hope we understand that it is correct, established understanding in Adventism that when the mighty angel of Revelation 18 comes down, we have always understood that at that point, the 4 winds begin to hold back the 4 winds. The 4 angels begin to hold back the 4 winds while the sealing of the 144,000 takes place. This is standard understanding in Adventism. So, in verses 1 through 3 of Revelation 7, where do we see the horse? Which verse? Pardon me? Perhaps in verses 1 through 3 of Revelation 7, which of those verses do we see the horse? Perhaps in your Romanian Bible. There is no horse, brothers and sisters. There is no horses in verses 1 through 3, all right? Okay. If you turn forward to page 115 of your notes, in the center of the page it says the four winds. And in Revelation 7 verses 1 through 3 we see four angels holding four winds. The winds of strife, and the reason they're being held is because at this time God's people are going to be sealed. And in the center of page 115 it says angels are holding the four winds, represented as an angry horse seeking to break loose and rush over the face of the whole earth, bearing destruction and death in its path. The four winds that are restrained in Revelation 7 verses 1 through 3 while God's people are sealed are represented as an angry horse. And brothers and sisters, the angry horse of Bible prophecy has been identified on these two charts which Sister White has said are ordained of the Lord. And the angry horse of Bible prophecy is Islam. And the angry horse of Bible prophecy is the four winds that are restrained when God's people are being sealed. What we're saying is that on 2001, the President of the United States went to the United Nations and said, we're now in a worldwide war with Islam, either for us or against us. And he immediately went into Afghanistan and Iraq and set up a communications gathering. They've been restrained, all right. They've been restrained. Islam was restrained here. The four winds were held back here, just as Islam was restrained by the four European powers on August 11, 2001. To understand this, you have to accept the pioneer understanding of the trumpets. I mean, I suppose you could understand it without accepting it. But as Seventh-day Adventists, you are required to understand the fourth angel's message in connection with the foundations of Adventism. Therefore, as a Seventh-day Adventist, you have to understand this in connection with the pioneer understanding of the trumpets. And they understood that Islam was the angry horse that bore death and destruction. That's what she says in its path. And brothers and sisters, look at Revelation 9, verse 11. Verse 11 of Revelation 9 is the history of the first woe. And it says they had a king over them. And William Miller says the king in Revelation 9 was Muhammad. But there's no way that Muhammad lived from the 6th century until 1449. And I'm not disagreeing with William Miller. I don't have a problem identifying Muhammad as the king, the symbol of Islam. But the Apollyon of Abaddon of the Old and New Testament is Satan. He's the one that brings death and destruction. But I do want you to take note that in a secondary sense, this is Islam. This is Muhammad. This is the Quran. And Abaddon and Apollyon means destroyer, death, destruction. And we find this in verse 11 of chapter 9. On 9/11, the angry horse of Islam that was to bear death and destruction was restrained. And on 9/11, the quote that we read about September 11th, with the great powers coming down, it's on your next page, page 114. I want to tell you something. I hope it's the sealing up. I hope it's not just stupidity, but knowing myself, it could be stupidity, all right? There's a sister here. We have a monthly newsletter that we send out on prophetic issues. And when I came across this quote just a couple months ago, wow, it's really good. All right. And after the last presentation that I did, the sister came up and she says, I found that quote in May of 2007.
and I emailed it to you and asked for your comments, and you put it in your newsletter, and you commented on it. You should read my comments. I don't see how this means anything, sort of like that. So I know I'd seen that quote in 2007, and it didn't click for me at all. But that sister who's here in this room, she saw it in 2007. She was excited, and I actually took some wind out of her sail with my comment. She heard that before. I don't know what she was doing, but I know I took some wind out of her sail. But in this quote, where it says towards the bottom, "From the light given me," this is the third sentence from the bottom, "I know that destruction is in the world." She's emphasizing destruction.
On 114?
Yeah, on 114, in the center of the page, the quote from Review and Herald, July 5th, 1906, "Under the great buildings there will be thrown down." The third sentence from the bottom, this is where the buildings of New York City are thrown down in Revelation 18, verses 1 through 3 will be fulfilled. She's emphasizing the destruction. This is one of the characteristics of Revelation 9, verse 11, of appalling and maddening, this destruction. And when Sister White says the four winds are the angry horse seeking to bring death and destruction upon the whole earth, this is the role of Islam. Right? This word, destruction, destroyer, this is the work of angering of the nation. So if we go back now to page 113, I've made that point. Let's try to make another point. On the top of page 114, we've read it a couple times. We've talked about it several times. On 1840, what we have is the fulfillment of the 391-year, 15-day time prophecy. Okay? And if we were going to be, correct proportionately, I would start this time prophecy out here. Everyone look up here for a second. Okay, I would be over here, and we would be marking here, July 27th, 1449 begins this time prophecy, 391 years and 15 days, and it comes to a conclusion right there. Correct? Correct? Okay, so let's go to verse 14 and 15 of Revelation 9. It says, "Saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, Loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month, of the year, for to slay a third part of men." Over here, on July 27th, 1449, prophetically, you have four angels that are loose. Is that not what it says? They're loose for 391 years and 15 days. And brothers and sisters, the correct, standard, pioneer understanding is that those four angels represent the four powerful sultans of Islam. If you understand that, say amen. Amen. Okay. So those four angels represent Islam. Amen? And over here in 1449, they were loosed. Correct? So on August 11th, 1840, those four angels were restrained. Okay? Prophecies ended. They're restrained prophetically. But what I want you to see is that this day, at this point in time, you have four angels that represent Islam that are being restrained. And we're saying that on September 11th, 2001, in agreement with Revelation 7, verses 1 through 3, that at this point in time, four angels restrained the four winds, which Sister White clearly lets us know is the angry horse of Islam. Once again, we're seeing four angels involved with the restraining of Islam at 2001, perfectly parallel the restraining of the four angels of Islam on August 11, 1840. Just out of curiosity, let me ask you a question. How many accidents are there in the Word of God?
Every word has its
Who is the Lover? Allah. Who is Ar-Rahman? Allah. Who is Al-Mannan? La ilaha illallah. Muhammadur Rasulullah. Muhammad is the messenger.